Hey guys, Matt Allen, Tim Little, welcome back to Tactical Bassin and welcome back to our Spring Buyer's Guide series. Today we are talking bait finesse. Rods, reels, baits. Let's go. BFS, bait finesse gear, is so much fun, guys. This is a technique that we've been fishing now for several years. Well, a few years. And it's been so much fun. That's what we keep saying. Fun, 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 right? Basically, until the strolling stuff kind of took off, we almost eliminated the spinning rod, the necessity for a spinning reel, a spinning rod, because you can do some of your favorite finesse techniques with bait casters. It is so much fun to spool a bait caster, throwing an 1/8 ounce swim bait or a little Ned rig, or flipping and pitching with little light tungsten baits. So there's a lot of key baits. The benefit of this category kind of growing over here in the States. Now, it's not new. It's been around for decades overseas, but here in the States, we have a lot more baits. A lot more companies are making soft plastics and jig heads, hard baits, rods and reels. We have a lot more rods and reels to choose from now than we did just a year or two ago.
Right.
So you want to dive into the rods and reels and we'll kind of work our way through? Yeah, let's start with rods and reels and then we'll talk specifics of the baits themselves. So this bait finesse thing, like Tim said, this trend has exploded. The only thing that has slowed it down is strolling, because strolling is easier to do with a spinning rod. That was the saving grace of spinning gear, because so many anglers had discovered how much fun it is to throw downsized baits and profiles on that casting gear. Now, when you dive into bait finesse, whether you're dabbling or going all in, your reel is your most critical purchase. So we have 5 reels here, and talking about the rods and reels isn't always the most exciting part. We're going to get to some incredible baits here in a minute, but this is so critical, because if you get this wrong, it makes it very difficult to enjoy all of the other things. And if you get it right, this is all incredible. It's such a fun experience. So when it comes to a bait finesse reel, this is completely different than your traditional bait casters. These are tuned to throw ultra light baits, the lightest heads, 1/16 ounce, 1/32 ounce, little micro baits, and to be able to cast them effectively on casting gear rather than a spinning rod. Now, if you're a spinning rod guy, we're not trying to isolate you. We're not trying to kick you out of the party here. All of these baits, of course, work very well with spinning tackle as well, but there is just something special about doing it with bait finesse gear. So talking budget first, let's go least expensive up into the more expensive reels. If we're doing this on a budget, from Abu Garcia, here we have the Revo X. This is the best reel that I have found for the budget angler to get in and dabble with bait finesse. Is it going to take a 1/96 of an ounce and sling it perfectly? No. But in US bait finesse, there's sort of this split that has happened. JDM bait finesse, ultra light, small water, flipping under bushes, catching tiny trout in tiny creeks. There's this whole JDM trend. In the US, bait finesse has turned into downsized power fishing, right? Yeah, taking your 2.8s, your 2.75s, taking your Ned baits and fishing those baits effectively. So it's very different here. So this bait will take an 1/8 ounce guppy head and a little swim bait, and it will send it. If you want to experience bait finesse and you don't want to break the bank while you do it, that Revo X is a great way to go. Stepping up from there, we get to the Corrado BFS. And the Corrado is what set the standard and lit this fire in the US market. Prior to the Corrado, there have been multiple bait finesse reels that had come to the US in the past 10, 20 plus years. But they were very expensive and the market was not ready for them. They were just wholeheartedly rejected by bass fishermen. Nobody spent the money to find out what it was about, to even discover all of this. But when the Corrado came, now it was affordable for the working man to try this out. And it erupted. Nobody was ready for how big this trend really was. And the fact that it is now no longer a trend. This is a permanent part of bass fishing in this country. The Corrado can throw everything. You want to take a 16th ounce tungsten and flip back up under cover? You can do it. You want to take your little Kitech or your little swammer and send it? Sure. Micro jerkbaits, topwaters, all of those things. Now, moving up from there, if you're going to throw bait finesse a lot, you have the option to get more refined if you go up in price point. We have 3 high-end reels here, and all 3 of them are very different. Let's start right here. From Abu Garcia, we have the Zenin LTX. The Zenin is by far the furthest casting out of the group of high-end reels. If you want to be able to take lightweight baits and just send them off the horizon, that is your reel. So if your idea of bait finesse is you're out on the Great Lakes, you got your spy bait, and you want to dump that spool, that's the reel for doing that. If you want, at the other end of the spectrum, you are fishing small waters, little creeks, you're flipping, you want to get in around cover, you want to make sure you're getting perfect cast, but you're not going for distance, the Shimano Aldebaran BFS can be dialed in like no other to effectively pitch ultra lightweights. But again, our goal here is not to dump the entire spool on the cast.
But you can still send it.
You can still send it, absolutely. Sort of in between those, from Daiwa, we've got the PX BF TW70. That is their high-end bait finesse reel, and it sort of does all, if you will. That is one that you can get really accurate. You can still dump a bunch of line if you want to, but it definitely leans towards the JDM end of the trend versus that American end where you're just letting her rip, right? Let me blaze through rods if you don't mind. I'll just blaze through that really quick, and then you can dive into baits or line.
At it. I highly doubt you're going to blaze through it, but go for it.
I'll do my best to speed it up here. All right, so let's same deal. Budget on up to high end. If you're on a budget, 2 rods that are really good options. First one from Abu Garcia, we've got the Veritas specific model. We're looking at a 7-1 mod fast medium light. So you want to take all your little tiny treble hook baits, you want to make those slow pitches, all that stuff you can do with that one rod. Next up from there, Tatula XT. This little guy is shorter. He's what, 6'5"? You're talking about a shorter, more JDM type rod again that you can get super accurate with and on a budget right around $100. You're not spending a fortune to dabble here. Moving up from there, we get into Cashin. Cashin had their Element series last year, which was a huge success. Cashin is a handmade, American-built rods on American components. They are rolling their blanks in the United States. The Element series was updated and is now the Element Z2. Nothing changed on price. Graphics, I mean, I think they look unbelievable. Everything is more refined than it was. The cork is tapered really well. You've got a 3-year warranty on a US-made product and you're not breaking the bank. That is, I mean, if a guy is just dabbling, that is an incredible way to go. And then stepping up from there, staying with the Cashin, you jump up to their higher end is called their Icon series. And the Icons are incredible. That 7-foot light is, I think both of ours, definitely my favorite rod to throw the Megabass Karashi, which is the ultimate bait finesse hard bait. That is my dedicated rod for that bait. I have a rod that has exactly one job to do, and it does an incredible job of it. From there, jumping over to Dobbins, we have the Sierra series. Dobbins was one of the first brands to really latch onto bait finesse. And they went so wide, it was almost staggering at first. We had a couple of the early models, and then Dobbins did so many that it took us some time to dive into more of the models, but they have some incredible options. This little 691, so a 6'9" little 1-power rod. Again, if you want to be super accurate making short casts in around cover, that's an awesome way to go. We've only got 2 more. I really did speed it up.
You're doing good.
Shimano X Pride. If there was only one, if somebody just said, give me one, like best bang for the buck, I don't care what the price is, just give me one, it's the Shimano X Pride 6.8 Light. That is that do everything rod. We can do everything from launch a spy bait to fishing your soft bait. It'll do it all. You're, mid to high 200s there. So it's not a price point rod, but it is incredible at its task. And then last but not least, from Megabass in the Destroyer P5 series. If you are taking your bait finesse seriously, if it is something that you are not dabbling with, it is something you are doing daily, high end makes a difference. Incredibly lightweight, incredibly refined from end to end. Everything is thought through. The actions are incredible. You've got several models to choose from in the P5 Destroyers that are fantastic. We will link all of them in the video description. Everything we've talked about so far, everything we're going to talk about, will link in the video description for you in the order that we talked about it, and we'll give you favorite models for each one of these lineups as we go. Your turn.
All right, guys, let's talk some fishing line, because out of all the techniques, I feel like fishing line in the bait finesse lineup is really, really important. One of the funnest, most fun bites I got on last year was taking a Cashin. It was the Cashin bait finesse rod paired up with that Abu, that Zenon. And like Matt talked about, you can spool that thing. I was throwing six-pound braid with a leader on it, and I was literally sending that spy bait with a bait caster way, way, way farther than I could ever throw it with a spinning rod, right? You guys know the benefits of that in crystal clear water, finicky smallmouth. I'm throwing that thing to the moon, and then I'm getting bit, and I'm cracking them like a 8-inch swim bait. It is so much fun, but being able to throw that really small diameter braid, being able to throw 7-pound fluorocarbon, it feels like you're flipping with a flipping stick as you're,
Right.
Even though it's 7-pound, if you try and just straight pull,
you can
7
pull
pound,
on it.
you can pull on it, and you're going to bend out the hooks on a lot of your hard baits before you ever break off. But all that to say, with these specialized reels, you don't have a lot of, you can't put a lot of line on your reels until you go downsize. So got a few different braids, a few different lines for you. First off, the Seagar, the PEX8. This stuff is insanely thin. You could put a whole spool of this on your reel. In fact, Matt did it.
I did do that.
Pay attention to how much line you're putting on, because you don't need that much line. But you can still cast 30, 40, 50, 60 yards when you're throwing a little tiny spy bait, right? It's so cool that that braid is so thin, but you have that no give, that no stretch. It's ultra sensitive, and you can throw your favorite baits a long, long ways. That's what's so special about these reels.
Stuff is just hair.
Hair, right? Taking a 16th ounce Texas rig and being able to throw it farther than you could with your favorite spinning rod setup. It is, the options are endless. So we got some braid. If you want to go the straight fluorocarbon route, that's another great route. I like to do that with my flipping and pitching techniques. I know it sounds super weird because we're talking about 1/8 ounce and 16th ounce tungsten, but you'd be surprised how many times you fish through a dock line and you don't get bit. You turn around and you downsize your little creature bait, or you downsize your little swim bait or Ned rig, and it's like dunk, 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 dunk. These fish have been so pressured for the last handful of years, and we've all had to downsize, right? We've all had to play that game. So being able to do that while still having the same muscle memory with a bait caster, right? We don't like flipping and pitching with a spinning rod where you have to flip the bail and do all that stuff. We just want to hit that thumb release and flip, 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 flip. You can go through that dock line and pick off those fish that wouldn't eat a traditional size plastic. So 7-pound is kind of the I think we'd agree that's kind of like the perfect size for it. It's still finessey enough to get bit in tough conditions, but it's also strong enough to straight wrench on them with this gear and not worry about breaking off. So This Samurai, this J Fluoro, this is the hidden. Matt found this a couple years ago, and it's just a line that you don't have to spool, you don't have to change out as much as other line. I don't know why.
Durable.
I don't know what the coating is, but it's super sensitive. It obviously with that green color, it's hidden, right? Hence the name, but it lasts and you don't spend a ton of money re-spooling all the time. And then 4, 5, 6 pound FC Sniper. That's great fluorocarbon. It's what I've used for years as my leaders, even on my spinning rods. But spooling up a real straight 5 pound fluorocarbon, again, casting it 30, 40, 50 yards, some of your favorite techniques. Taking a 2.75 swammer, putting it on a 1/8 ounce guppy head, and spooling your reel, and then jacking a 5 and 6 pound smallmouth on it. It is just so much fun. So guys, if you haven't played around with bait finesse, you should definitely pay attention to this video, because these are some cool baits, but being able to catch fish with that same muscle memory, just downsized lighter gear, it is so much fun.
All right, let's dive into the baits themselves. First bait up, there is no debate, is the Megabass Karashi. This little bait is somewhere in between a jerkbait and a topwater. You can go fast, it'll dance on the surface. You can slow it down. You can use it like a sub walker. You can get it to do all sorts of things. But anyone who asks me about bait finesse and says, I want to try it, I hear that it's fun, what should I throw? The first thing that I tell every single person is to get their hands on a Megabass Karashi. Now, they are very difficult to get your hands on. They were out of stock for like 8 months last year. It's incredible. These things come and go in the blink of an eye. But if they are in stock, get them. If they're not, you can back order them so that you can get your hands on them when they show up. But they are unbelievable. The way that you can fast fish those baits, they get a reaction strike from fish like nothing else. And when you are fishing them quickly, doing that on a bait caster is amazing. I started out throwing this bait on spinning and I really enjoyed it. But the motion to fish it on spinning, it takes your whole arm to work that rod. It wasn't until I switched over to bait finesse that I went from, hey, this is fun, to like, this is incredible. Being able to take that same bait and just work it with your wrist. Just pop, 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 pop. Everything's faster. It's easier. The action gets faster. And the way fish respond is unbelievable. It's one of those techniques that truly shines on bait finesse. And everybody should try that at some point in their life.
The fish just come unglued. That specific bait, they just come unglued for it. It's been a long time, if ever, that I've seen fish react to, I mean, they're eating it, coming off, eating it again, coming off, eating it a third time, and you're like this, they just go crazy.
They go crazy.
All right, let's talk bait finesse topwater. So we got 2 poppers and a walking bait. Again, guys, I keep saying that this is fun. You can take your favorite techniques and just downsize a little bit and have a blast. You can take a 2 pound largemouth and hook it on bait finesse, and now it feels like you're fighting a 7 or 8 or 10 pound largemouth. It is just so much fun. And what better way to do it than on topwater? So got 2 little poppers for you. You guys can see these things are tiny. I wish I had something for a size,
like a full size bait
reference. I mean, here's a 2.75 swammer. This is a tiny popper. That's the Oompa 40 from Demiki. And then next up, we got the Baby Pop X from Megabass. A little bit bigger than the Oompa, a little bit larger, a little bit bigger bloop, if you will, on your popper. Yep. But that is a true JDM bait. Really clean finish, works extremely well. And then another one from Megabass. This is the Dog X Junior. Little tiny walking bait, little side-to-side action. Again, with the bait caster, you're able to throw these real light walking baits, real light topwater baits. And a lot of these actions on these rods are more towards the moderate side of things. Yeah. So they work really, really well with with little treble hook baits, because these hooks are tiny. Some of these hooks are really, you're talking
way small.
12, 14, 16, 18 sometimes, way small, but those rods and the drag system on those reels allow you to be able to throw these little baits and then hook up and play these fish out. It is so much fun. But Topwater, what do we got next? We got...
all right, let's talk crankbaits.
All right.
Tim keeps mentioning that fun thing, and you cannot emphasize that enough with bait finesse. Bass fishing is supposed to be fun, right? And especially the last couple of years with like tournament drama and electronics drama, all the nonsense, no one goes bass fishing because they want to get grumpy, right? And it's ridiculous some of what bass fishing has turned into, and it doesn't need to be that way. Whether you live on a fishery where you can go out and you've got a shot at an 8 to 12 pounder, or you live on a fishery where you are lucky to catch an 8 to 12 incher, if you throw bait finesse, it doesn't matter, because those tiny fish will absolutely rip drag. And this is more than anything else in this sport right now. If you want to have fun bass fishing, you want to forget the garbage, just enjoy your time, doesn't matter what bites, does not matter if a bass comes up and smashes that karashi or if a bluegill comes up and smashes that karashi, they're going to rip drag. This is what bass fishing was always about. And I think it's why we have latched onto it so much, because anyone who tries it has more fun than they did the day before they tried it. And that is what this sport needs. And this is an amazing way to capture that. So just a couple of crankbaits from Megabass. So Megabass has an entire bait finesse series of hard baits. That's why you keep hearing us talk about them. The little Griffin Bait Finesse SR, the little shallow runner. This is a unique bait. It's got a very high pitch, tinny sort of a sound to it, and the fish respond to it really well. The other one from Damiki, we have the Disco 40. It's more of that traditional, like mid sound that you would expect in a full-size square bill. Both of these are amazing options. You get great color options with both. They both cast shockingly well for their size, and the fish respond to them exactly how you would expect. I mean, if I am on a square bill bite, I can turn around and downsize and just keep lighting those fish up. It is a lot of fun.
All right, next up, I want to talk about this guy right here. This is the Duo Realis Spin Bait 70, a little bit smaller than the Spin Bait 80. And like I said earlier, this is probably one of the funnest, most fun bites I got on all last year. Crystal clear water, bombing this thing on a bait caster, and then just the fish haven't, they haven't, a lot of people don't throw a spy bait anyways these days.
They sure haven't thrown a small one.
They haven't thrown a small one, and they haven't thrown it that far. They don't even know there's a boat around because you can cast so far. And then once they crack that thing, it's just so much fun. Again, I can't say that enough. But that little guy right there, it's easy to cast, whether it's braid to leader, straight fluorocarbon, whatever it is, bombing this thing out there, slowly reeling that thing back, and then when you feel that, it is, you won't forget it. It is a ton of fun.
All right, a couple of jerk baits, because again, anything that you do with traditional gear, you can also do with your bait finesse gear. So jerk baits, we've got two of them here. From Duo Realis, we have the Rosante SP63. From Megabass, we have the X80 Junior. These are both shallower running jerkbaits, very aggressive jerkbaits. You can hit them hard, you can twitch them, rip them, pop them, and get fish to react. We have some deeper diving baits that we really like as well, but not for springtime. And again, this is a springtime buyer's guide series. These are baits that we throw all through the spring. Those shallow jerkbaits, when bass are up chasing bait, particularly on a lake where they get a lot of pressure, you can downsize. It doesn't matter if you're out there fun fishing or if you are in a tournament, you can downsize, fire these baits that those fish are not used to seeing, and it's incredible how they respond to them.
Yeah, next up, I'm glad we ended on jerkbait, hard jerkbaits. I want to talk about soft jerkbaits for a second. Again, your same favorite techniques you're throwing during the spring on your traditional sized bait casting gear, now you're just downsizing. This is the Rhythm Wag 3.5. Basically, it's a small downsized soft jerk bait paired up. We're going to link all this stuff down below in the video description, but paired up with a #1 all-purpose hook. That is a perfect weedless soft plastic jerk bait that is super light. I mean, it's weightless, and you can still cast it with a bait caster, but being able to throw a smaller profile, get that same darting action, that same weedless action around those grass edges, around those dock pilings, when those fish come up shallow, that is an awesome little combination to throw on your bait finesse gear.
For me, if Karashi is #1, Rhythm Wag, that tiny soft jerkbait, is #2. Tim has some other preferences. Like, everyone has their own fishing style, and that can be adapted to bait finesse gear. But for me, that's the 1-2. Those are those, more than anything else, those are the baits where you load up on a fish and you're like, this is amazing. You know, it's just so much fun. All right, next up, weightless baits. 2 of them here. Very, very different profiles. Throwing a Senko is a fish producing pattern, right? 5-inch Senko, that's like the bread and butter for most people. A Senko by itself actually weighs a lot. So a few years ago, we figured out that if we want to throw bait finesse gear, we drop down to the 5-inch thin Senko. It is a much slimmer profile, and we wacky rig that bait most of the time. That thin Senko doesn't weigh nearly as much. It casts really well on bait finesse gear, and I've found that it catches the exact same caliber of fish, but you're able to do it on a lot lighter line, so you're able to get more bites. Other end of the spectrum, we have this little bait that we have talked about in some of our other Buyer's Guide series the last few days. From Raid, this is the 2-way. We talked about this in the JDM video. I'm losing track. It's all blending together now. Did we talk about it in that one too? But this is the smallest size of that Raid 2-way. Little tiny bait. Put a little wacky rig hook in that thing. You let that bait flutter down, and it is a completely different profile than anything else that they've ever seen.
All right, where do we want to go from here? We got creatures, we got craws, we got neds, we got swim baits.
Why don't you just talk swim baits, and then we'll figure out the middle there.
All right, how many of you guys like to throw a 2.8 Kitech or a 2.75 Finesse swim bait, right? We've all done it on the spinning rod, where you drop your line, flip your bail, throw it out there, flip the bail. Being able to rear back with your favorite bait finesse rod and just send it, I know, just right off of P5. Being able to spool your reel, and then it's that same muscle memory as you throwing a 8-inch Huddleston or Savage Gear or your favorite big swim bait. Yep. And when you get that, you set back a lot like the spin bait, the spy bait. Being able to pair up a guppy head to your favorite, whether it's the Swammer 2.75, the Spark Shad. I can't tell you how many 5+ pound smallmouth I caught last year on a guppy head with a Spark Shad, just sending that bait out there. Again, ultra clear water. We're talking 30, 40, 50 foot of visibility. Being able to outcast, get out away from that boat, and then just slow roll this thing. And those big old smallies just come up and just hammer it. You set that hook, and then they come up, they're tail walking. Some of these reels,
your rod's bent in half.
You're feeling at the handle. You know, some of these reels have clicker drags, some don't, but you know, they're peel and drag, and you're like, this is awesome. It's so much fun. But if you like to throw a finesse swim bait, pair that up, like I said, with your guppy head, whether it's a 2.8 Kitech, whether it's an X-Zone Swammer, or the Spark Shad. These are awesome, awesome little ways to catch fish. We've all caught fish on finesse swim baits, but being able to do it on your favorite bait BFS setup is so much fun, and it's a great way to catch big ones.
All right, let's jump into this last category. This is by far the biggest category. Talking about those little Ned baits, little creature baits, little worms. The Ned category with a spinning rod is fun. But I'm telling you, it takes it to another level when you bump over to that bait caster. Now, there's 3 very different ways that you can rig. Let me just grab all that.
Grab them.
3 very different ways that you can rig these baits. All of these baits. You've got your traditional Ned style head. This is actually a brand new head from Great Lakes Finesse. That's their little Ned head. But this head was designed with a very specific action that helps the head want to stand up. So where a lot of baits will follow, a lot of Ned heads, I'm shocked when we watch them in underwater footage, even with
A high float bait.
a high float bait, they lay down because the heads weigh so much and they're off center and they just knock it over. That one wants to stand up, but that standard Ned head. Then you've got your weedless EWG type of Ned head. This is that Nedlocks EWG by Z-Man. This in the last probably 2 years has become my main way that I throw Ned heads anymore. I was so late to the party because I thought the hookup ratio would be terrible, but we got into a river situation where we're drifting in current. We were losing so many heads. We had to do it, and the hookup ratio was 100%. I was shocked. Now, the one thing that makes these really special, really different, is when you go to that micro Texas rig. A 1/16 ounce tungsten worm weight or flipping weight. Micro little tungsten weight. And then a wide gap hook. Go to that 1/0 rigging hook. And you can take these little creatures and craws and flip them. The same exact place that I would have a flipping stick with 65-pound braid, horsing those fish out. I shoot it in there on a 16th ounce head and 7-pound fluoro, and you do whack, and then you just sit there, and it will blow your mind how many of those fish just swim out to open water. They just come out. Who knew? It is so much fun. You want to jump into specifics of baits?
Yeah, specifics of baits. All right, so craws. He talked about craws and creatures and flipping baits. So the TRD bugs, right? The Laztec, it's a ultra durable, high float bait. It's got that beaver style. I'm not gonna pull it out of the package, but it's that beaver style profile. This thing pairs up perfectly with that little 16th ounce head, 32nd ounce head, 8th ounce head, whatever weight you need, paired up with that hook. But being able to flip and pitch this around cover is crazy. You know, this, I saw the light a couple years ago. Matt had been catching them on this little Texas rig setup, and I was fishing a flat where I knew there was fish and I couldn't catch them. I bent down, rigged up a rod, tied this thing on, flipped it out there, dunk 3-pounder, dunk 2-pounder. I'm like, what in the world? It just works. It's a size and a profile that these fish don't see a lot of. But that TRD bugs is a great little flipping and pitching bait. This guy right here, this is the 2.5 Stealth Craw from X Zone. They came out with a whole series of bait finesse baits. A drop shot bait, a creature bait, a craw bait. But this guy right here, super realistic. Again, high float, likes to sit up. It's another great bait to put on a Ned rig, to put on a rig it Texas rig, weedless. But either way, that is a really awesome little craw profile. And then this guy right here. This is the Great Lakes Finesse Snack Craw. A real, I don't want to open this, but it's a real small downsized craw. Looks really good underwater. It has a matte finish, so not a lot of high gloss, not a lot of reflection. But that guy right there, again, rigged, either Texas rigged or on a Ned head. That thing is awesome. You just want me to run through these?
Let me jump in there for a couple, because you just arrived at some of my like all-time favorites. Yeah. Okay. All right, next one up. Again, back to that X Zone Stealth Finesse series. We've got the Stealth Creature. This is a micro little creature bait. And again, if you're following this Buyer's Guide series every day, we have already talked about this bait. But this bait on that tiny Texas rig is incredible. You are catching the same fish that you would catch on a big full-size creature bait.
Brush hog or something.
And you're catching more of them. It's amazing how they respond to it. That has become one of my key, and not my key confidence finesse baits, just one of my key confidence baits. We go to a new lake, we don't know what the fish are doing. That thing is on deck for me all of the time. And again, with every one of these baits, where we link them in the video description, we'll give you our personal favorite colors for them too. Like grass craw in that craw bait, amazing. In this guy, black, blue, and green pumpkin, unbelievable, right? They're just those key colors that just catch them. Next one, from Savage Gear, we've got that Ned salamander. That is a bait that, if you guys have watched this through the years, you know I fell in love with this thing. I fell in love with it before I even put it in the water. I don't know why. Like, we saw it in a package and I was like, Tim, that's my new favorite. And he's like, what are you talking? Why? Like, why that one? I'm like, I don't know, but it is. And since then, the amount of fish I've caught on it is amazing. But it's got this completely ribbed body and a bulbous tail, and it just likes to just sit there and flow in the water, and it works so well. And then last but not least is one more brand new one from Great Lakes Finesse. This is their brand new Ned Bug, and it's a really interesting little bait. Like, think craw type profile, but no claws. It's just a little bug. Great Lakes Finesse is designed by guys that spend all their time fishing, you know, big water, smallmouth, clear water. This on a little Ned head, I instantly saw the light with this bait. The second I saw it, I knew what this bait was for in my lineup, because there are a lot of times in really clear water situations, be it smallmouth or spotted bass, where you're fishing your little Ned baits and you're like, there's one, whack, nothing there. And you either come back with no claws, or if it's a Z-Man bait, they just stretch that thing out for a mile and it just balled up. But so many fish nip those baits in clear water. And this is that same profile, but with no claws to be nipping at. If they take a shot at it, they're going to get that hook. And I think that is really, like, instantly I knew where that was going to play in my lineup.
Yeah, the Great Lakes Finesse stuff is awesome. The matte, they have that new color. This one's called Brown Pumpkin Special. They just came out with that. Thing looks awesome. But having those matte colors, it's just something we hadn't seen in the soft plastic world until these guys. But those, yeah, smallmouth, they like to always come up and just bite those pinchers, bite those claws. And I don't know if they're trying the bait or they're trying to take the claws away from them, you know, whatever it is.
I don't know what they're doing.
They can hit it hard, and you swing and there's nothing there, and you come back and the pinchers are gone. So, but guys, if you haven't already, Bait Finesse BFS is so much fun. You will have a it's such a hoot to just fish, catch average sized fish. It turns it into an epic day. But you can take your favorite hard baits, your favorite topwater baits, your favorite finesse baits, whatever it may be, and you can catch above average fish and just have a ball. It is so much fun. But down below, we'll link all this stuff. We'll link our favorite ways to rig everything, our favorite colors and all that. But again, I can't emphasize it enough. Hopefully you can see by the smiles on our faces how much we enjoy, you know, how much passion we have for this, you know, just not just bass fishing, but for specifically this type of fishing, because it is, guys, it is so much fun.
All right, guys, with that, we're going to wrap this one up. These videos are continuing every single day. We've got 2 more springtime buyer's guides to go. Tomorrow, we are talking about budget rods and reels. Those rods and reels that won't break the bank, but that are really dialed in and are worth every penny. And then the day after that, we're talking about bang for the buck. Now, that doesn't mean inexpensive. That's the best that you can get at different price points. From the most high end to the most affordable, where does that spend reach the farthest? So we will see you tomorrow morning talking about those budget rods and reels. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you tomorrow.
See you guys.